Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I don't have a lot of viewers or subscribers just yet, so these first videos are going to be kind of a series of just covering the basics, ABCs, of the fundamentals of the lifestyle that I believe is the most indicated and appropriate for the human species, and the best way to eliminate the epidemic of chronic disease that has absolutely destroyed our species, especially in Western countries. So, my first video was an introduction to the carnivore lifestyle, so that gives away the ending there. And then my next video was a talk on how calories relate to the human metabolism, and not to give away the ending on that one, but they have absolutely nothing to do with the human metabolism, so that was a fun video. Um, and this talk today is going to be called Plants Hate You, as you can see in the title there. There's something in my mouth, there we go. So a couple of caveats before I proceed. I would very much like, I don't expect this, it's an unreasonable expectation, but I would really like to have like mature conversations about this stuff, because one reason I called this "Plants Hate You" is because there's a man named Dr. Anthony Chaffee, who is a very intelligent, smart man, who is worth listening to and giving your ear to, and not necessarily believe everything he says, but give him a listen. He is rather notorious, or infamous for his talk called "Plants Are Trying to Kill You." And because most people lack intelligent and emotional maturity, they hear plants are trying to kill you and they laugh because they eat plants and they're not dead. Just because plants are trying to kill you does not necessarily mean that they will kill you. It's just, but people, I don't know. It's The internet has turned people into, uh, the internet has pretty much trapped people in grade school where we're just a bunch of trolls making fun of each other and laughing like retarded gorillas. Um, So I made this title, Plants Hate You, and I will show you why. Um, Everything that I'm talking about here is scientifically irrefutable. You can we can debate the extent to which this applies to humans, but everything I'm going to be saying about plants is absolutely true. So there's a lot of arguments that people will make as to whether, like a lot of people will say the toxic effects of plants actually help humans, similarly to how when you work out, you create micro tears and acute inflammation, which is actually beneficial to muscle growth. These toxins that you're consuming is actually making you stronger, and the dose equals the poison. We're going to get into all of that. So I appreciate you giving an open mind and not being trollish if you have anything to disagree with, because I really get sick of these. I really get sick of these childish back and forths with people who don't know how to think for themselves, or just have an adult conversation. I mean, how old are you? Anyway, so moving on. Plants. Most people think that plants are like this benign thing. They just exist for the benefit of us and other animals. They're just there. And they don't really care about anything. They don't have a like squirrels live in them, owls and birds make their nests in the trees, and we cut down trees to make houses, and we grow plants and things to eat, and the wild animals eat plants, many of them, and that's what they're there for, and that's not true. Um, Animals have the same basic instinct as all life does, plants, fungal. They want to survive and they want to procreate, reproduce. So plants don't want to be eaten, harmed, or killed any more than animals do. Now animals have defense mechanisms that are different from plants. They can run, they can fly away, they can attack you, they can kick you with their hooves, peck you with their beaks or tear you apart with their teeth or their claws. They can gouge you with antlers and horns. Whereas plants are they're anchored to the earth, and I mean, some plants have like thorns that or needles like cactus and whatnot that discourage people from eating them. But mostly their defenses are pesticides, and in fact, if you eat plants, the vast majority of pesticides that you will consume will be produced by the plants themselves, not sprayed by the farmers. That's a fact. That's like 99% of the pesticides that you'll consume will be plant pesticides, not glyphosate or atrazine or any of the other abominations that they're spraying on your food. So keep that in mind. According to Anthony Shafee, and I cannot independently verify this because Google searches are not really geared towards giving you actual facts. They're just geared towards pushing you a narrative. And I didn't really feel like going 2, 3, 4, 5 pages deep in a Google search to maybe figure this out. But according to botany textbooks, according to Anthony Shafee, you will not find anything less than over 60 known carcinogens in any vegetable you buy at the grocery store. In fact, perhaps if you want to look deeper into it, something interesting. But all plants have defense chemicals and they are all toxic to humans. Does it mean it'll kill you? No. And we'll get into the dose makes the poison argument. It is both valid and invalid at the same time, depending on the context. Um, People like to look at things and without nuance. So I'm going to go over a few of the more prominent and harmful um, plant pesticides. There are, of course, dozens or even perhaps hundreds more, but these are the most dominant and most prominent. Definitely probably the most prominent would be oxalate. I'm not really sure that there's a plant in existence that does not have oxalate. All of these, by the way, are known as anti-nutrients. So not only do they cause the harmful effects on the body that they do, they will bind to certain nutrients chemically, and you will just poop or urinate them out. You will not be able to absorb them. Kind of one of the more vicious ways that plants kind of defend themselves. They say if you're going to eat me, you're not going to get any benefit from it. Now, of course, herbivores do get benefits from them, but they have different physiology than humans that allow them to do this. Perhaps I'll get into that in a little bit. But oxalates are definitely probably the most prevalent, um, and their effects are very, very like uh, like you don't really notice them because none of this is acutely harmful. So that's where the dose makes the poison argument is kind of relevant. You can eat enough spinach to get an oxalate content that will actually kill you. It's not particularly a lot of spinach. Most people would not ever even come close to eating that much spinach, but you wouldn't really have to eat very much spinach, relatively speaking, to actually kill you if you wanted to. Um, so oxalate forms needle or shard-like crystals when it combines with calcium, and these shards and needles are very microscopic. They're kind of like diatomaceous earth. If you know what diatomaceous earth is, it's very, very fine kind of shards of this fossil that penetrate the exoskeleton of insects and cause them to dry out and die. You have these in your body. When you consume oxalates, they lodge into literally everything in your body. They can get in your eyeballs, they get into your organs, your any of your soft tissue and organs. Um, and it's as nasty as it sounds. Um, if you were to, this is one reason why if you were to transition to a carnivore diet, you want to do so very, very slowly because when you dump oxalates, when your body cleanses itself of these oxalates, you get something called a wasting of sulfate, which is the most abundant anion in the human body. It's vital to human metabolism. It interacts with cholesterol to lubricate the arteries and reduce inflammation. So it's a very important thing that can cause damage when you're oxalate dumping. So that's why you want to transition very slowly in the carnivore because if you cut it off right immediately, the oxalates that are lodged in your tissues just get purged all at once, and it creates all kinds of nasty problems. So the shards log into your tissue, causes inflammation. It can cause leaky gut, which leaks the oxalate shards into your blood. It leaks foreign proteins and bacteria that should not be in your blood into your blood, which is cause. I'm going to do a video on leaky gut and how all of the myriad ways it really messes people up. They may not even realize it, and they may end up on some really terrible medication, especially things like SSRIs and whatnot, when it's really just the food that they're eating. Um, so a lot of you can get this one condition called oxalate-induced enteropathy, which is where oxalates deposit in the synovial fluid, which lubricates your joints and nourishes your cartilage. So this is very relevant to my story because I converted very slowly to carnivore over the course of 10 years. I had never had any intention of being carnivore or staying carnivore. When I went carnivore, I was like paleo for about 5 years, which is like a whole food meat-based diet where you can have some carbohydrates with potatoes and white rice and whatnot, which was life altering. I highly recommend it if you're on a SAD diet. Um, and I moved to keto after that for 5 years, so I cut out all the starchy carbs and just did leafy green cruciferous vegetables and those types of vegetables with moderate protein, high fat. And then during a bodybuilding competition, I was keto during this competition in my prep, and my food intake was so low that I cut out the plants just so I can focus on fat and protein, making me essentially carnivore. And within 2 weeks, I had years-long pain in my shoulders that was very, very uncomfortable and debilitating. This was gone, and I had golfer and tennis elbow in both arms, and that was gone within 6 to 8 weeks. So at that point, I'd already kind of known the philosophy behind it and everything. Less plants being more optimal. But there was no way I was going to go back after experiencing that freedom of being pain-free and being able to lift without pain and live without pain, without this inflammation. Sometimes the pain in my elbows was so bad I couldn't even swing a hammer, and I was in construction at the time, so that was not a good thing. So if you have arthritis or joint pain and you're attributing that to just wear and tear and age, probably just eating too many vegetables. Try it out. And you also can get this condition called hyperoxaluria. I write very poorly, especially for something that I need to access to do this talk coherently. Hyperoxaluria. This is one of the more common experiences of people with oxalate symptoms. It gets in your urine and it forms crystals that lodge in your kidneys, and which are also known as kidney stones. Very, 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 very painful and uncomfortable and dangerous condition. Can block your kidneys. Um, you can get kidney damage. You can get renal failure and a condition called oxalosis, where oxalate accumulates systematically throughout the body. Talked about earlier with the oxalate dumping. So very, very insidious. And there's a word that I'm trying to think of here that I keep glossing over in my brain, but um, it's not immediately noticeable the damage that it gets. And so I'm kind of getting to the point where the dose is the poison here. It's not going to happen with a bowl of spinach, but if you eat oxalate-rich foods multiple times a day over an extended period of time, then you will get cumulative toxic effects from it. This next toxin is probably, at least on paper when I read it to you, will seem worse than the oxalates, but it's not quite as prevalent as the oxalates. We're going to talk about nightshades. So I'm pretty sure all the nightshades have oxalates, but mostly only nightshades have this toxin, particularly it's called glycoalkaloids. Things like apples and cherries, and there's another fruit or vegetable that has it that's not a nightshade, but I forgot what it is. But cherries and apples have it, but mostly it's found in nightshades. Um, Some nightshades are so poisonous they will kill you, as you probably have heard. There's a deadly nightshade, which is one of the more toxic plants known to man. And they all have the same chemical, which is toxic for the same reason. Just the deadly nightshade has more of it, and it will kill you or make you very, very, very sick in the immediate term, acutely. So some of the worst nightshades being potatoes. So tomatoes is the second lowest or second highest glycoalkaloid containing nightshade, and it's 20 times less than the potato. So the potato is particularly vicious. And tomatoes are also nasty, particularly unripened tomatoes or unripened tomatillos, unripened peppers, unripened eggplants. In particular, they all have the glycoalkaloids, but the more unripe they are, the more they will have. A lot of people down here in the South eat green tomatoes and then they fry them, which is just a double whammy of atrociousness. Um, Goji berries and also tobacco is a nightshade. So if you chew tobacco, you're getting these glycoalkaloids, particularly nasty. Natural pesticides. It's concentrated in the high leaves, flowers, and unripened fruits in particular. Green tomatoes, really terrible. I'm going to say that again if you're watching from the South. And what they do is they bind to cholesterol. So you have 50 trillion cells in your body, give or take. And 50% of those cell membranes are made of cholesterol. So when these glycoalkaloids bind to the cholesterol in your cell, they disrupt the structure and the cells will leak or rupture or break. Particularly nasty sounding. Now, again, this is not something that happens every time, and not something that happens enough to cause you acute harm. But over the years of using this, consuming this, you can get arthritis, fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, and all kinds of nasty neurotoxicity symptoms. It can cause birth defects in lab animals, which is interesting, not conclusive, because you are not a lab animal, you're not a rat or a monkey or whatever, so keep that in mind, but it's interesting. The neurotoxic effects is that it blocks the enzyme choline sterase, which breaks down acetylcholine, and when acetylcholine, if you're blocking this enzyme, the acetylcholine will accumulate and in your muscles and it will overstimulate the cells, and you can get convulsions, paralysis, respiratory arrest, and death. Your heart is a muscle, so if your heart is not functioning properly because of an overaccumulation of acetylcholine, you could die, obviously. Obviously, this does not happen from marinara sauce, but it does happen from glycoalkaloid toxicity. It's the same kind of function that military nerve gases have on people, same effects. It is, again, like I said, a neurotoxin. I just said that. Wonderful. Um, Symptoms of glycoalkaloid poisoning, physical symptoms, headache, vomiting, diarrhea. Neurological symptoms, apathy, restlessness, drowsiness, confusion, rambling, incoherence, stupor, dizziness, trembling, hallucinations, and visual disturbances. So again, these are things that can just kind of creep up on people very subtly. I think subtle was the word that I was looking for earlier. And because, you know, it's not like you didn't have tomatoes yesterday and then you had tomatoes today and these symptoms appeared. You might not attribute these symptoms to the persistent accumulative toxicity of some of these plants that you're consuming. And of course, you're told that all of these things are amazing for you and essential, and you should consume them on a regular basis, right? So, um, glycoalkaloids also survive most types of cooking and processing, so there's really nothing you can do to get rid of them, unlike some other anti-nutrients we'll talk about. So that's a particularly nasty thing, the nightshades. And again, we are going to get into those being the poison in just a moment. Coming up to that, we have phytates, or phytate. Sorry, there's not different phytates. It's just phytate. Phytate is only something you need to worry about if you are consuming a plant-based diet. I'm just mentioning that because people talk about it and they make a big deal out of it, and it's probably not as bad as most people think if you're consuming meats. because it will block the absorption of iron and zinc, but it does not appear to block the absorption of heme iron or zinc that's found in animal products. So it's only going to block non-heme iron and zinc from any plant material that has iron. I'm not even sure what has iron anymore because I don't consume plants and I don't really care. So don't have to really worry about that if you're consuming a lot of meat and if you're not consuming plants at all, obviously. Obviously, none of this applies to you if you don't consume plants. So, and with phytate, you can soak, sprout, or ferment these to reduce their phytate content, not like you need to if you're not eating them or eating meat. So, and finally, we have lectins. Lectins are particularly nasty. They bind to the cell surface sugars and can bind them cell to cell like glue. Sounds wonderful. They bind chemically to glycoproteins and derange them, causing dysfunction. So it sounds very similar to glycation, where sugar binds non-enzymatically to protein. And we're going to go deep into glycation when I talk about the mechanics and the dynamics of atherosclerosis, heart disease, because glycation is heavily involved in that. And not to give it away at the ending, but LDL is not causal. It is involved, but not causal at all. Not even really contributing, really. But that's going to be an excellent video. Look out for that one. It's probably going to be my next video. I have a little bit more homework to do on that. And lectins will cause or can cause gut permeability, which is particularly nasty. I'll be doing a video, if I didn't mention that earlier, on leaky gut and all of the things, the terrible things that it does to people, particularly from the grains. And I'll do a little, like a lot of people think that gluten is only harmful if you have celiac disease, and that's just not true. Gluten is a vicious, vicious anti-nutrient, and it causes, again, inflammation in your gut lining. Inflammation in epithelial cells causes permeability, which is a big issue with atherosclerosis that we'll get into in a future video. But once you cause the inflammation, it opens up kind of the cracks between the cells, and things can escape through those cracks or get lodged in those cracks. In the gut's case, these foreign proteins can escape into the blood and cause an autoimmune response. The gut bacteria, pathogens can escape into the blood and release toxins, which can cause all kinds of neurological damage or neurological effects that you will mistake for things like, depression and anxiety. Really terrible stuff. So even if you don't have celiac disease, you might want to think about what the plant toxins in things like wheat are doing to you. It is very, very nasty stuff. And leaky gut is a very, very persistent and, widespread problem in particularly Western populations because they tell us to make grains the foundation of our diet, which is absolutely insane. So that basically goes through all of the plant toxins, the most important plant toxins, I think. We're going to talk about, so that's what plants do to you, irrefutably. Oh, and all right. So I meant to kind of in between what they do to you and what they don't do for you. I wanted to talk about the dose being the poison. I think you get the idea here. Obviously, if I ate a bowl of spinach right now, I would be okay. Like I might experience some gut irritation, some gut like my microbiome wouldn't be happy with me because I have a microbiome programmed to eat animal products only. I don't put any plant material down there, so my microbiome has adjusted to the substrates that I feed it. And if I feed it something that's not part of that, it just makes the gut unhappy. One time I ate an avocado because I really used to like avocados, and I saw some really beautiful looking avocados at Costco, and I said, you know what, let me buy a bag of avocados and try an avocado. I haven't had an avocado in 2 years. Let me try it. And it was absolutely delicious, and I felt like I was going to throw up afterwards. It was terrible. So I was like, there goes that. Just, and I knew it wasn't particularly because I was poison per se. It's just you don't have a gut microbiome, and when you do that, it upsets the gut microbiome, and it makes them very angry, and they give you noogies. So so the dose uh, does equal the poison to a certain extent, but the problem is, especially if you follow these quack dietary guidelines and you're eating vegetables every single day, 3 times a day, then when does the body have time to cleanse itself of these toxins? Especially if you're eating lots of spinach, if you're putting turmeric and everything, if you're drinking golden milk, my God, like turmeric, the oxalate load in turmeric, if I didn't mention, is like it makes spinach look like Mickey Mouse, and you know, spinach is an oxalate bomb, turmeric is an oxalate nightmare, and a lot of them they're like, oh, drink a fruit smoothie. Like the average amount of oxalates that most people consume per day is like 150 milligrams. If you drink a fruit smoothie, that could push that up to like 800. And people are drinking these things every single day. Like, the dose equals the poison, and you're blasting yourself with it multiple times a day, probably over weeks, months, years, a lifetime, and of course, and then they'll probably tell you that arthritis and these sorts of things is just wear and tear on your body from just getting older. And I was 49 years old when I went on the carnivore diet, and I don't have any joint pain anymore. I don't have arthritis. I don't have golfer and tennis elbow. I don't have impingements in my shoulders. I can sleep on my side at night with no pain, discomfort, and it's a pretty wonderful thing. And I know that's an anecdotal story, but there are countless stories that are similar. And if you have arthritis and joint pain, and you might want to like wonder what it feels like not to have that, try cutting out the plants, see what happens. And then you too can add to the anecdotal mountain of evidence that everybody can mock and laugh at, and you can laugh back at them because you feel awesome. They probably don't, or they won't, because the bill always comes due. Toxins are cumulative, and if you're eating them multiple times a day for over years or decades, you will they will rear their ugly head. There's no way around it. For most people, outliers always exist, and your genotype, like if you come from a genotype that's been consuming plant material for longer than maybe some other populations, maybe like Northern European populations where they can't consume a lot of plant material because there really isn't any. The climate really doesn't allow for it. Then maybe you can consume larger amounts. I don't know. But it's a fact that cannot be denied that these plants have toxins in them, and you will suffer the consequences if you consume them on a regular basis persistently over a long period of time. That's just facts. Sorry. And finally, what plants are not. Again, most of these phytonutrients that they call are actually defense chemicals produced by the plants, aka pesticides. And a lot of people will say that, again, that they have benefits to the human body similarly to acute inflammation caused when you lift weights, micro tears in the muscles that when healed cause your muscles to grow and get stronger. Um, and perhaps that's true if I ate a bowl of spinach right now and didn't eat anymore. But if you're doing it all the time, your body doesn't have time to heal from it, um, and it accumulates over time. So those most of those phytonutrients are not good for humans. Most antioxidants in plants are only antioxidants for the plants themselves, and not antioxidants for humans. So you're eating antioxidant-rich foods and causing a pro-oxidant response in your body, and you don't even know it. One of the many ways that everything they tell you um, is basically the opposite of what's true. Up is down, and everything's upside down and backwards. So, and then finally, we'll finish off with fiber, everybody's favorite, fiber. Fiber is one of those wonderful things. I'll tell you a story. Like when I first heard about carnivore, I thought it was an internet gag, like eating Tide Pods or setting yourself on fire in the shower. Um, those stupid Zoomer things that they were doing back then. And of course, you need fiber. Of course, you need plants. Of course, you need phytochemicals, phytonutrients, bro. Phyto just means plant. I mean, it sounds super super cool and smart. But phyto just means plant. That's all it means. And of course, you need these things. These are the same. This is the same establishment health system that told you that cholesterol and saturated fat cause heart disease, and that was never anything other than marketing disguised as science. Not even for one day was that ever even true, or not for one day were they ever even just wrong about it. They were lying from day one. It does not cause heart disease. It never did. It was marketing disguised as science, and it's the same thing with fiber. It's marketing disguised as science. They want you on a plant-based diet because it makes you sick. You are not physiologically or biochemically designed to consume plants in large quantities unless you're starving. Um, and they want that to be the basis of your diet with, grains and legumes and all of these horribly inflammatory plant substances. The basis, very little meat, very little red meat, especially, and when it is, make sure it's lean protein. You don't want animal fats. You want lots of seed oils. And everything that they told you was just the opposite of true. So why would fiber be any different? And guess what? It's not. It's not good for you. It is completely indigestible mass. You cannot digest it. It passes from mouth to anus almost completely undigested. There is a small amount of bacteria in your digestive system that will ferment, which is another word for rot, by the way. When they say meat rots in your colon, it's not the meat. It's actually the vegetables rotting in your colon. And very little of that goes on by the time it passes through you, especially if you're just shoving indigestible mass into your body. You're not really, it doesn't stay in there for very long because you're just shoving more into it. It's like eating fiber. By the way, I go to the bathroom every day, at least once a day, and I don't have to strain. I don't have gas. Might get a little bit of a poot coming out of my butt if I right before I have to make a movement, but for the most part, I don't fart all the time. It's not healthy to fart all the time. Um, and I go to the bathroom just fine. Um, and if you are cramming indigestible mass into your body just so you can go to the bathroom, it's kind of like clearing a traffic jam by plowing into it with a bulldozer. And aside from all of the inherent anti-nutrients that accompany these fibrous foods, um, this indigestible mass pushes digestible mass through your digestive system before it can be fully utilized. So you're really depriving yourself of nutrients by eating a high fiber diet, by abstaining from the more nutrient dense bioavailable foods like meat. So um, fiber is not what you think it is, of course, because they lie about everything. Sorry. And I have this study here in the World Journal of Gastroenterology. You can look this up. It's called "Stopping or Reducing Dietary Fiber Intake Reduces Constipation and Its Associated Symptoms." So they took 63 people who had idiopathic constipation. Idiopathic means they just don't know what the cause was. They just had constipation, and they did some tests on them to eliminate the possibility of causes, things like colon cancer and whatnot. So they didn't know what the cause was. They just couldn't go to the bathroom very often. They were going to the bathroom like once every 3 to 6 days, and they had very very painful movements. They had to shove it out. They had to push it out. They had bloody stool. They had bloody stools, blood coming out of their anus, and lots of bloating and gas, painful bloating. So they're just having a miserable time of life. And the test required them to restrict fiber completely for 2 weeks. After which time they can add a moderate amount of fiber. They can go back to adding a lot of fiber, or they could just remain zero fiber. The majority, I think something like 60 or something people, decided to stay zero fiber, and then um, most of the remaining added moderate amounts of fiber, and then like a small amount, maybe like 6, I think, or something. I can't remember. And I have the study right here, and I highlighted things, but the text is too small, and I'm going to look like an idiot trying to find out all this stuff. And I should have looked it over before I started talking, but I was too excited to make the video. A small amount of people went back to high fiber. So we'll start the small amount of people that went back to high fiber they experienced more constipation and its associated effects, the bloody anus, lovely, lovely, the bloating and large mass in their stools, difficulty pushing that through the opening of their anus. Um, and it was just a terrible time for them. And they, for whatever reason, they just refused to cut out the fiber. The people with reduced fiber, but still eating a moderate amount of fiber, experienced the same symptoms, but on a lesser scale. And the people who completely eliminated fiber completely and totally eliminated all of their symptoms. They had no bloating, they had no gas, they had no bloody stools, no constipation, they had no difficulty passing their movements, passing their stools. And I want to be clear, I'm going to talk about in a future video about studies, associative studies. This is not scientific. This is not cause and effect. It's just very interesting. So if you are somebody who has idiopathic constipation, if you're having a difficult time going to the bathroom, if you're only going to the bathroom like every 3 or 6 days or 4 days, whatever, or not often enough, you feel stopped up, it's painful, you feel bloated, and maybe you bleed when you go to the bathroom, it's not good. If you have these symptoms, might be something you want to think about. You might want to go on a fiber restriction diet and see what happens. It's probably going to be good for you. Because fiber is it's not really food for humans. We don't have the physiology to digest fiber. We will, like I said, ferment some fiber. That's where the gastrointestinal distress basically comes from. When the fermentation happens, it releases these gas, methane, and whatnot, and that causes discomfort until you can pass it. That's why you fart a lot. And farting is not especially like painful. Like if you're relieving a lot of pressure by farting and your farts smell absolutely awful, if you smell like a biological weapon when you pass gas, it's not good. They tell you it's good. They sing songs about it. Beans, they're good for your heart. The more you fart, the better you feel. You eat your beans in every meal, whatever, right? That's just not true. Beans are absolutely terrible for you. They're loaded with lectins and other anti-nutrients, and the soluble fiber is absolutely terrible for your gut, terrible for your gastrointestinal comfort, and it's just not what humans are supposed to be eating. You don't have the physiology, so you do have a small amount of bacteria in your gut that does these things, but the amount of nutritional value that you receive from it is minimal. A lot of it because you don't have a lot of bacteria in your gut, and I'll tell you about gorillas in a second. And plus, you keep cramming this indigestible mass into your colon, and it's just shoving everything out before it can really do anything. So it does release a short chain fatty acid called butyrate, which is enormously helpful for humans. But here's the thing: if you're in ketosis, nutritional ketosis, one of the main ketone bodies produced by the liver is called beta hydroxybutyrate. So you get butyrate from gut fermentation, but you get beta hydroxybutyrate from being in ketosis. So um, you don't have to eat fiber to get your short chain fatty acids. You could just get into ketosis. And in herbivores, particularly herbivore primates like a gorilla, um, everybody loves comparing humans to gorillas as if we're similar at all, and we're not. Gorillas have a cecum, which is basically an organ that houses massive amounts of bacteria that breaks down the fiber that they consume for them and releases short chain fatty acids for them. So they don't digest fiber any more than you do. They just have a lot more bacteria in their gut and the physiology to break down the 40 pounds of vegetable matter that they consume every single day. If you want to be like a gorilla, go ahead and consume 40 pounds of vegetation a day and see how that works for you. It's not going to be good. So physiologically, we don't have the physiology to break down plants. And any herbivore that has the physiology, really, it only has the physiology to house the bacteria to do it for them. They don't digest fiber. The bacteria does. Cows, any herbivore you could think of, especially herbivore primates, will have that cecum. You had a cecum many, 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 many millions of years ago. But once we started eating meat, that cecum became atrophied and vestigial. It's called an appendix, basically. And a lot of people get their appendix removed because if it causes them problems and you don't really need it. So I think that about wraps everything up. And like I said, I'm not telling you not to eat vegetables. Eat them if you want to. But one question you might want to ask yourself after watching this is, do I really like vegetables? Or have I just been convinced that I like vegetables because I've been convinced that they're good for me, and I just kind of lie to myself? Because right now, I used to love Brussels sprouts, and when I eat Brussels sprouts now, I don't particularly think they're very good. They're kind of disgusting. And most of us can't really eat vegetables unless they're cooked, which you should always cook your vegetables. Never eat raw vegetables, by the way. Um, we cook our vegetables and then we drench them in things like butter and ranch dressing and cheese. And we're like, oh, I love broccoli and it's drenched with cheese. You really love cheese. You really love butter and salt. That's what I really loved. I didn't really like. I mean, nobody likes. I mean, eat raw broccoli. It's absolutely foul and disgusting. And cooked broccoli really isn't that much better unless you have a lot of butter and salt on it. Usually, cheese, broccoli, and cheese, absolutely delicious. But is it the broccoli or is it the cheese and the bacon? Probably the cheese and the bacon, if we're honest with ourselves. But if you genuinely like vegetables and you wish to continue eating them, I'm not telling you not to eat them. I'm just telling you this is what you're consuming. This is what it could be, and it's probably doing to you. So if you start to develop these symptoms, don't blame age or wear and tear or your genes. And if it's something that you were starting to get uncomfortable with and might not want to continue living with, then you can consider this information and maybe cut out the vegetables and see how it helps you. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Give a like and subscribe. I appreciate it. The more subscribers I get, the more I can diversify my content, maybe. But for now, I'm just going to stick to basics. Basics. Probably next week, you will see a video on the mechanics and dynamics of atherosclerosis, heart disease, cholesterol, LDL, all those wonderful things. And that's a very fascinating subject too. So I hope you'll look forward to that and watch when it comes out. Thanks for watching, guys.